Welcome to my MSW501 presentation on homelessness and middle childhood. My name is Stephanie Reese, and I chose this topic due to the lack of attention that homelessness, particularly in children, has gained. The first study on the topic was performed in 1980. This study found that there's a significant effect on development, especially on children. Further, recent statistics have shown that homelessness among children is at a historical high. This presentation will begin by discussing the developmental theories of middle childhood. These theories include Erikson, Piaget, and Maslow. Next, we will talk about homelessness in terms of definition, statistics, and causes. The impact of homelessness on development will then be analyzed from current research, as well as implications for social workers. At the end of the presentation, you will find a YouTube video linking to a story of an 8-year-old girl living in a homeless shelter. This will serve as a conclusion with the ability to analyze her case from a social worker's point of view. According to Erikson, the middle childhood conflict is labeled as industry versus inferiority. This stage basically says that all children have a need to be productive and to have successful experiences. A child in this stage is given a task, and if they succeed at the task, they develop a sense of confidence and thus feel industrious. However, inferiority develops if the child experiences multiple failures. If a child does experience a sense of inferiority, the likelihood of future success is limited. In terms of homelessness, children between the ages of 6 and 12 are beginning to develop a sense of wanting to help their family. Their attempts at assisting with their circumstances can be met with success, where they find a stable, permanent home, or they may be met with failure and a feeling of inferiority. One point that is vital to include is the ability to be resilient. While they may be experiencing inferiority in their current stage of life, they are able to revisit this conflict later to develop a sense of success and ultimately industry. Piaget's concrete operations covers ages 7 to 11 and include developmental milestones, including understanding other people's perspectives, also known as the end of egocentrism, mastering and improving performances, and utilizing symbols. One challenge homelessness poses to children in this stage includes the inability to master and improve performances. This is due to the lack of resources to access areas that need mastering, such as extracurricular activities or subjects in school. Further, their use of symbols as representations of objects and events in the real world may be skewed to the violence and trauma that homelessness causes. Maslow's hierarchy of needs was developed with the idea that humans have multiple needs and will actively work towards meeting those needs to maintain stability in their level of functioning. These needs are placed in order of importance, with having physiological, like food, water, and clothing, met first and foremost. They then can work up the pyramid to self-actualization, which is their perceived highest potential. Again, homelessness takes away that safety and security that is essential for reaching full potential. Maslow's hierarchy of needs is very important when trying to analyze the effects of homelessness on a child in the middle childhood stage. The next portion of the presentation will discuss homelessness among children. How is it defined? What are the statistics? And I will also discuss what causes homelessness and recent research. So what is homelessness? Prior to doing research, I had no idea how to accurately define what homelessness was. After my research, I can clearly define it as someone who lacks a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence, and someone who has a primary nighttime residence in a public or private place not designed for or ordinarily used as a regular sleeping accommodation for human beings. An example of the second definition includes car, a park, an abandoned building, hotels, motels, bus or train station, an airport, or a campground, just to name a few. So what are the numbers? Let's talk about statistics. A startling 1 in 30 children can be defined as homeless. Of those children, 75% claim to be doubling up, which means they are coexisting in a home with another family. 16% are in shelters of some kind. 6% are living in a hotel or motel, and 3% unsheltered. Of those 16% reported in a shelter, 33% are considered to be in the middle childhood stage. If you take the time to do the math, that's about 63,000 children between the ages of 6 and 12 years old are living in a shelter. A shocking 7%, or around 2,900 children between the ages of 6 and 12, are identified as unaccompanied youth. One definition reported of unaccompanied youth suggests that these are children living with someone who is under the age of 18 years old. This person could be a parent or another relative. We just don't know. Did you know the average cost of renting a one-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of a city is around $850? For an apartment in the city, it's almost double that. This is why lack of affordable housing is one of the causes of homelessness in middle childhood. If you take into account utilities, monthly living expenses, and the lack of affordable housing, you end up with someone who's in poverty. It's another cause of homelessness. If you can't make the payments for your place of residence, then you lose your ability to live there. It leaves you homeless. Domestic violence is another cause of homelessness. When someone is a victim of domestic violence, they try to leave their situation, sometimes without thought or plan. They end up having nowhere to go. So they end up in a shelter, on the streets, or living with friends, also known as doubling up. Now we move on to what current research has concluded about homelessness in middle childhood. The first factor to be considered is food insecurity. Due to the lack of access of fresh food and the limited access to cooking facilities, homeless children often develop food insecurity. Food insecurity is not knowing when or where the next meal will come from. There's an insufficient quantity of affordable and nutritious food. All of this means that their basic physiological need, according to Maslow, is not being met. Therefore, they cannot meet their full potential. Additionally, this malnourishment can lead to deficiencies in vitamins and minerals, delayed development, and even obesity due to the food options that they are presented. The next factor to consider is health. Research has shown that homeless children are sick 4 times more often than other children. They have 4 times as many respiratory infections, twice as many ear infections, 5 times more gastrointestinal problems, 4 times more likely to have asthma, and they are at higher rates for obesity. This is due to their food insecurity and the food options that are presented. There is also a lack of counseling, medical, dental, immunizations, and preventative care offered to children who are homeless. The next factor to discuss is the effects of homelessness on children in terms of mental health and exposure to violence. Research has shown that homeless children have increased feelings of anxiety and isolation. With Erikson's theory of psychosocial development, these children are searching for industry and feeling successful. Socially, they are lacking in meaningful relationships due to their living conditions. Dill presents the idea that homeless children fall somewhere on the PTSD spectrum. This could be due to the startling statistic that 83% of homeless youth have been exposed to at least one serious violent incident before the age of 12. Dill further suggests that homelessness in any form is distressing to children. It often brings on nightmares, emotional numbing, difficulty concentrating, sleeping and eating disorders, or struggles to maintain emotional control. And in some cases, homelessness follows one or more other traumatic events, such as foreclosure, divorce, domestic violence, or the loss, illness, or incarceration of a parent. Education is another factor that is affected by homelessness in middle childhood. With children moving to different locations in frequent intervals, school mobility becomes an issue. Many times, students do not attend school on a regular basis because they do not have proper documentation. They are sick due to their lack of health care, or they just don't see school as a priority. This leads to grade retention for not meeting the standards at that school, being 4 times more likely to display developmental delays, and 2 times more likely to develop a learning disability. This resorts back to the school mobility and not being able to access services that would assist with the developmental delays and learning disabilities. Further, some things people take for granted, like school supplies and homework space, is almost non-existent. All of these factors together play a part in the educational barriers that homeless children face.